we talked about this already in our matchup earlier, so I'm not going to say too much other than the real Death Valley is in South Carolina. Brian Kelly ran his mouth and called Clemson Death Valley Jr., and it is well documented how petty Dabo Swinney can be. So I expect
CFB week 1 is here. It is one of the best times of the year, baby. We cannot wait to get going. Week 0's in the books. Week 1 games are in play as we speak. We are back. We are BTB Analytics here to break down for you top marquee matchups for week 1. Talk about data, talk about angles, talk about edge. Hopefully give you guys all that you need heading into this weekend to make better and more profitable and smarter bets. So Seth, Steve, it's already a whirlwind, man. We're sweating bets live on air right now. Like there's a lot going on. So we'll touch on that in a little bit. We'll see. We'll give an update on one of our model predictions, one of our model plays here in a bit. But a lot of marquee matchups, you guys, heading into week 1 here, and it's a doozy. Like right off the bat, big noon kickoff, Texas and Ohio State. I could not have asked for a better situation. I know some people are all pissy because it's not a night game or whatever, but like, I can't think of a better way to wake up and basically get going on Saturday and get to watch this game, basically. So not to bury the lead at all, but this is also a play that we identified early in the season and have some action on, have an opinion on as well. So I want to get your opinion, Seth, and start with you. Let's talk about this matchup here because the market has moved, unfortunately, against us a little bit here. But current line is about 1 or 1.5 in some cases. So what is your high level assessment, not only from what the data says, but your expectation for this awesome matchup kicking off week 1?
Yeah, my expectation is a lot of defense. The reality is we are going to be ushering in 2 new offenses for teams that are highly, highly, highly capable of recruiting. So I think first and foremost, that's what I'm expecting. I'm expecting, those teams to be able to move the ball and defense. I think the nod is going to go a little bit in the direction of Ohio State, even though they are a rebuilt offense, returning 47% of their offense, but Texas is only returning 29% of their offense. So again, the defense is really where the continuity is coming here. And when we think of last year, Ohio State was the best team. They were the best offense. And I know there are a lot of new coordinators here coming on the Ohio State side, which is, definitely some questions, but we've quantified that. We don't think that this is going to be a too terribly big blowout game, but I think anything's on the table. And the early projections for this is Ohio State winning basically by a field goal. But I really do believe this is a high variance game. If Texas wins, or if Texas were to win, this wouldn't really be that surprising. But I think on what we know today, I would expect a lot of defense, probably stagnant offense.
Okay, so yes, Steve, both teams obviously very, very talented here. Steve Sarkisian coming back with both coordinators. Ryan Day coming back with Ohio State. He lost both coordinators on the flip side. So coaching continuity is a question mark on one side. But not only that, you could argue maybe Texas has, is bringing in a new quarterback since Arch Manning only played sporadically. But Julian Sayin replacing wait, do I have that right? Oh,
Will Howard, yeah.
Replacing Will Howard for Ohio State. What's your assessment on those 2 key components and how you see the game script going for this for these teams?
Yeah, I mean, you talk about continuity. There's really a lot of not continuity on both sides. This is what these teams do because they recruit so well. They have so much talent. The talent just goes to the league. I mean, this is the rematch of the college football semifinal, right? The Cotton Bowl. 26 players from that game are gone. They've been drafted to the NFL.
That's crazy.
12 from Texas. And so, but this is rinse and repeat, right? Seth mentioned this before. To me, just as a human being, for Ohio State, if this were a week 5 game, I think I feel a lot more comfortable with Ohio State. Like every piece, like you're getting the best version of them. But they did lose Kelly, their offensive coordinator to the Raiders. They lost Jim Knowles, their defensive coordinator to Penn State. Can't wait for that game. And now they're being replaced by Brian Hartline and Matt Patricia, respectively. Quinshon Judkins, Shavion Henderson are gone from the backfield. And what worries me from Ohio State standpoint is this offensive line, right? They ranked 63rd last year in their PFF grade. They lost both their starting tackles and their center, and none of their projected starters have a PFF grade of higher than 70, which isn't great. Then, of course, you have Julian Sayin, who is a 5-star prospect, 5-star recruit coming in. So it's another question mark. Now, on the bright side, though, you do have literally the 2 best players in the country on Ohio State in Jeremiah Smith as a receiver and Caleb Downs at safety. The angle I'm looking at too is, remember, this is a rematch from last year's semifinal. Smith only had 1 catch for 3 yards. So I expect him to get targeted early and often and him have a great game. And then you kind of mentioned this already, Kev, but from Texas standpoint, yes, Arch Manning has a famous last name. There's been a ton of hype since he got to Austin. But we've only seen him in a very limited sample size, and that's against Colorado State, UTSA, Louisiana Monroe, and a miserable 2-10 Mississippi State team. So, he got some action against Georgia in their regular season matchup in Florida, and he went 3 for 16 for 19 yards in each of those matchups. So, Seth, you hit it on the head for me. I think the defense is going to be the big thing here. Yeah. It's going to make a break for both these teams. Ohio State, 3rd best in defensive pass EPA in our database. That is a real deal. That is a tough matchup for Arch to kind of get his feet wet, if you will. And for me, whichever team can really win in the trenches, whichever team can either keep their quarterback upright or put the quarterback down, is going to be the one that runs away with this. And I do think Ohio State has the edge there. So.
Yeah. And Seth, to your point earlier as well, like expecting a lot of defense, and the market is right in line with that. This opened in most places at 51 and is now basically at 47.5 throughout market. But what are your thoughts real quick as to why this has moved towards Texas? Because again, we talked about, we have a 2.5.
Yeah.
And that's where we have action on. But now it's been inching towards Texas here a little bit.
Well, we're sitting here Thursday, so there's a lot of time and there's always buyback. I will not be surprised if this closes at 2.5. I really don't believe it will get to the 3. There is enough difference in opinion, but it all comes down to preseason power ratings. We have Ohio State as the number 1 team with Texas right behind them at number 2. If you look at SP Plus, he agrees with us. If you look at Massey Peabody, he puts Texas as the number 1 team. And, using that, it justifies. Now, I think that this move from basically 2.5 to basically 1.5, I expect to be buyback, but I think it's just differences of opinion. We've seen the market be on fire this week. Damn near 10-point moves on the spread.
There's been some crazy
buyers, and just like clockwork, pretty much it gets bought back. So I don't really put too much weight into it other than what we talked about. There's a ton of uncertainty. If you forecast Texas as win this game, I am not dying on this hill. You might be right. This is one of those games that your number spits it out. You bet it. It's a high variance game. There's a ton of unknown, right? Like I said, 29% of your offense on Texas and you're returning 47 on Ohio State. I mean, we know half these teams basically, and then new coordinators on Ohio State. But for me, I definitely am not an Arch hater, but I want to point out we have kind of crowned him before we've really seen him do anything that is extravagant. You highlighted, Steve, all the games he played in. I don't believe they covered in any of those games, and he struggled against Georgia. So, that's our biggest taste of, SEC play. So I'm not saying he's going to struggle. I'm not saying Texas isn't going to be good, but this is the first big game we're going to see him in where he's the starter. It big falls time on his shoulders. We don't know for certain what that's going to look like, just as much as we don't know what Ohio State's going to look like. So bet it, pray. I mean, we got a minus 105, so I'm okay with it.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Yeah. And to your point, I don't know if we're Arch haters, but maybe just Arch skeptics, right? Which is probably healthy,
Yeah, prove it to me.
Yeah. Crowning him before the season kicks off. Let's slow a roll here a little bit. So, all right. Yeah, like I said, it's going to be an absolute doozy to kick off the weekend. Really exciting game to start. Obviously, whoever loses this game still has just as good a shot as any to make the playoffs and make some noise in the playoffs, frankly. So it's not a death knell for either team if they lose, but implications nonetheless for the losers. So, all right, guys, let's move on. Or before we do to the next one, don't forget, Sydney, appreciate you. Shout out Memphis, Tennessee, representing the Tigers over here. Yeah. Don't forget, guys, to comment. Let us know your thoughts on the games that we're talking about. What angles you want to hear about, what data you want to hear about. Don't forget to like the video. Subscribe to the channel, too, if you haven't already. We greatly appreciate that. And as a reminder, we are live every single week with a college football show and an NFL show. So make sure you have those notifications on as well so you get real-time updates for when we are live. Let's move on, though. Let's talk about the next game on a PAC's Week 1 slate. Let's talk about Alabama and Florida State. Another game where we have maybe an unofficial opinion on, if you will. But Steve, I want to start with you on this one. So again, kind of from the coaching standpoint, like Kalen DeBoer coming back after some would argue maybe a disappointing season. I guess if you're a Bama fan, probably disappointing. 9-4, missing the playoffs. They have a new OC. On the flip side, Mike Norvell, after just a very god awful 2-10 season. We were all over that last year. We cashed what that they're under in like week 5, whatever it was. So a lot of question marks on that side of the ball, on that side, and with their quarterback, in my opinion, in particular. So this has been, this is obviously shading towards Alabama pretty heavily here by 2 scores. So given what our data says and kind of the assessment of both of these teams, what is your expectation for this matchup?
Oh man, this has all the makings of an absolute bloodbath. I mean, I think this opened up at 13 and a half. It's at 14. And I'm curious to see how much further it will go. I mean, obviously we know about the disaster for season. You just mentioned it, that Florida State had at 2-10, but on the Florida State side, they are getting BC transfer Thomas Castellanos, right? So that's the big news. New quarterback coming in. Can they revive the whole team? But he already poked the bear by saying Alabama doesn't have Nick Saban to save it. And, quote, he just doesn't see them stopping them. Now, he said, yeah, he did that for his troops to raise morale. But better believe Alabama players have already made it known that they've heard it and they are going to address that on the field. And if that weren't enough, right, if you don't want to do the whole narrative revenge-based angle, Alabama has the second highest team talent composite score per 24/7, and you know they're not overlooking any games, right? I mean, you mentioned it last year, the disappointing season. They lost to Vanderbilt. They lost to a pretty poor Oklahoma team. No one's getting overlooked this year. And so this is going to be a time where I expect Alabama to right every single wrong from last year, exact every single revenge, and it's going to be on Florida State, who they clearly have a bone to pick with. Now, the one thing I will say in defense of Florida State is that we do know Alabama tends to struggle with more of the mobile quarterbacks, at least they did last year, and Castellanos can run. So there's a kind of question of, what's going to happen there. I don't know how long that's going to last, especially if Alabama can start putting up points and Florida State becomes more one-dimensional. And then the other thing is Ty Simpson, right? So Alabama quarterback coming in. What kind of QB player are you going to get for him, right? Is he going to be any better or worse? I mean, he's definitely a different profile of a quarterback than Milroe was last year. But I think maybe you kind of get that. He is a 5-star prospect, so Alabama should have done something right here. But maybe in the first half, have a little bit of a close game, but I don't see this game lasting close for long.
Yeah. Seth, Steve mentioned a little bit. This is kind of danced around that 14 mark, 12 and a half at one point, 14. And if you're so inclined, or if you at least want to be a Florida State backer, Bet Rivers has a 14 and a half now out there. So based on what our numbers say and what we make it, talk to us a little bit about, the expectation from your side of it and why you think maybe the market is playing dance around with this one a little bit.
Yeah, I was surprised. And there was a bit of a buying opportunity, like you said, a little bit earlier this summer. It got as low as 12. We contemplated buying it. We didn't end up pulling the trigger. Looks like the 13 and a halves are starting to dwindle down and 14s are now the new market. I'm not fully surprised by that. Ohio State was a team that was forecast to win 9.5 wins last year. They were coming off the whole drama of making the CFP and not. And then this team won 2 games last year. And now we're sitting here forecasting a 6.5 win season. So this has been a really, really big wild ride for Florida State. And they obviously had a horrible season last year. And so now we look at this team, they're returning 59% of their offense, 61% of their defense. And I have to imagine if you're a Florida State fan, that's probably good news because that team last year was bad. Yeah. On Alabama's side, we know the story. Year in and year out, they lose a ton of talent to the league. They're returning 62% of their offense and 63% of their defense. The talent is one of the main drivers for me. This team from Alabama is the number 2 overall talent roster in the nation, and Florida State is number 19. We know when we talk about blue chip ratio, the proportion of 4- and 5-star recruits on these teams. And this is actually the first year Florida State has made that list, meaning in the last 4 years, they have had at least 50% or more of their recruiting class be 4- and 5-star recruits. So the other question becomes, is Florida State an actual true blue chip team, or did they peak and this is going to, it already peaked and this is the fall and it's going to continue to fall and Florida State's really never going to kind of reach their potential? I think we make this game around, I think it's 16 or 17. So for us, the 14 number, I really wouldn't want to touch it. If you want to be a Florida State backer, it's probably not the craziest thing in the world to grab a 14.5. We'll see what the market does, but there are a lot of unknowns for Alabama. This is a team we're not necessarily low on, but we talked about the uncertainty at quarterback. Ty Simpson, he had opportunities to start. He's been at Alabama for 3 years. We've seen him against South Florida. Didn't go very well. This is when it was questions on if Milroe frankly got benched. He didn't step in and take the job. They said, hey, take the job. He didn't. So are we certain now? I think I'm assuming here with Kalen DeBoer seeing him staying, that he must like what he sees, because Alabama obviously can get a quarterback if they want. For me, it's a stay away. If you're going to bet it, you got to grab a 13.5 minus 115 at best. After that, they're like, let me talk to the DGens. If you're betting a 14, what are you actually betting? Because now the game has changed. For you to win that bet, they need to win by 17. They need to win by 21. How often does they do that? How often is the market wrong on these 14-point, key numbers? You got to ask yourself that. I know, it's first Saturday. You want to bet all the games. Alabama's going to win by $1 billion. Just, make sure 13.5. The train's leaving the station, in my opinion. If you're going to bet it, grab the 13.5 now.
Bama by $1 billion does sound good, though. I mean, they should make that a shirt.
But if you go to the market and you
kind
of look at the analytical, like we're higher than most, and we're around that like raw number of like 19. Like, we just ignore the market. What do we make this? Okay, 19. All right. Then you go to like some of the Massey P-Buy. They make it 15. You go to SB Plus 15. It's going to be tight, in my opinion. Maybe Alabama wins by 21. Maybe. But I think you're gambling purely, and that's not what we do here. We actually win. So, for me, it's not a play. If you're going to be forced to bet it, you got to grab that 13.5 at, I wouldn't lay 120. It's too rich.
Too expensive. Yeah. Price matters, of course, always, forever and always. Yeah. And to Seth's point too, guys, remember, we have our analysis here is data driven, predictive metrics that we use that go into our model that has a lot of blood, sweat, and tears poured into it. There is up for free on our website, forever and always. We have our CFB team data table. I highly encourage you guys to check it out at btb-analytics.com. You can filter and see many of the metrics that we include in our models. A lot of the play-by-play stuff, some other unique pieces of data, such as weighted EPA that a lot of other folks out there aren't incorporating. Highly encourage you to check it out. It will help you become a more informed bettor. And of course, guys, if you want to partner with us all season long, now is the time to get in. We have monthly and season-long packages available. 2 years profitable in a row, betting college football, 3 years in a row in NFL as well. Use code BTB10 if you're interested to get 10% off the season-long package. We're in for a fun season, boys. So let's move on to the next one, guys. A couple more games I want to get into here. So another big matchup, LSU versus Clemson. This is one we've talked about. If anyone is here or if you caught our season preview episode, we are generally sellers of LSU. We have their under 8.5 win total this year. And if Brian Kelly is unfortunately infamous for anything, it's that he sucks week one. He just can't win week one games. And this is a tough one out the gate for the Tigers here. So, Steve, I mean, Brian Kelly, again, from the coaching perspective, a lot of continuity on his side. Both coordinators are coming back. Dabo and company, they have a new DC coming from Penn State, which is a pretty unique ad, in my opinion. That could be a significant move. So curious to see how that plays out. Obviously, two very talented quarterbacks on both sides, Garrett Nussmeier and Klubnik for Clemson. But this one is a relatively tight one. I don't think the market hasn't done a ton on this one. This is currently at 4 pretty much throughout. And I think it is open at 2.5, so market is predicting a 1-score outcome in this one. But yeah, what's your take on this one and how you expect the game to go for the Tigers? And actually, Tigers on both sides. I was gonna say who's mascots were getting conflicted in my head, but Tiger on Tiger crime about to be.
Yeah, well, I mean, you said it's a 1-score game and the market hasn't done much, but they moved to that key number, and I think that is absolutely right here. I mean, look, let's talk about this. I mean, for me, this is going to be all about continuity. You mentioned this, and we all know Dabo prefers homegrown talent, and that's exactly what you're getting in this Clemson team. 16 out of their most 20 viable players are returning this year. And this is a team that is just continuing to improve. We talked about it on our ACC preview show about Clemson winning 8 out of the last 10 ACC titles. 2023 was the first time in God knows how long that it didn't reach 10 wins, right? And last year, by all intents and purposes, was a relatively down year, even though they did so well. And so now you're getting all those contributors back with another year in the same system, ready to improve. Now, what I will say, though, the one down spot for Clemson, their defense, right? The defense ranked 44th EPA per play. They definitely need to step up. Where they struggle with specifically was on the run D side. And you mentioned already, so they got rid of Wes Goodwin, who had a absolutely abysmal year as defensive coordinator, brought in Tom Allen from Penn State. I think that's going to help. You're getting TJ Parker back. You got two 315 pounders on the 315 pounders on the interior of that D-line in Peter Woods and DeMonte Capehart. And I think they're going to be able to stop this run this year. Offensively, I expect even more progression with Cade Klubnik, having a receiver trio, Brian Wesco Jr., TJ Moore, Antonio Williams. They are going to absolutely gel and create havoc, and expect them to attack LSU's weak point, which has been the pass, right? They were 14th towards the bottom, right? Last year. This is the team we talked about again. It's been second to last in Power 4 in defense overall in the last 2 years. And everyone's going to talk all this. We got it all on TikTok. Oh, well, you don't know ball because they got transfers. They addressed the defense this year. Yeah, I don't want to hear it. All right. Yes, they did get some 4-star transfers. AJ Halsey from Houston, Monster Delane from Virginia Tech, Tamarcus Cooley. But they were all 3-star prospects out of high school. And this is what people don't talk about, right? There is a difference between being a 4-star, 5-star out of high school and being a 4 or 5-star as you progress through your collegiate career. They are not the same. And this is not just opinion. This is actually legitimately been studied. Prospect 4 and 5 stars go to the NFL at a much higher clip, and they are more likely to win awards and make an immediate impact on their team. The transfers aren't. I'm not saying they're busts or they're bums. I'm just saying it's not the same thing. They're not apples to apples. And so until I see actual evidence that this is not the same LSU defense that was 98th in pass coverage grade and 103rd in explosive plays, meaning they gave up a ton of explosives, until I see that secondary actually do something, I'm taking a team that's shown us year in and year out that they can actually play solid defense, they can play solid offense, and they have high continuity. And the last thing I'll say, people talk about the whole Brian Kelly thing, like, oh, he's 0 for 3 in his home openers, and LSU hasn't won a home opener in like 5 years, so they're going to be motivated to win this one. Well, so
it's 8 years, just by the way.
8 years. Okay, I stopped at COVID, so I mean, dear Lord. But so is Clemson, right? I mean, Clemson lost to Georgia. They got smacked by Georgia in the home opener last year. Then they lost to Duke 2 years ago, right? So they're tired of losing their home openers as well. So this is, for me, I get why the market's doing what it's doing. I definitely back it. It's my spoiler alert. It's my off the number. So we'll talk more about that later.
Okay.
I don't have a lot to add here. I agree with your analysis. It's to me, it's almost like a hate off. I don't like Clemson either, to be honest, as far as the season outlook. But in this game, yeah, I do understand why the market's buying it. We put this number around 4 or 5, so we kind of get the move, especially through the 4. I definitely would not be touching at these prices, and at 4.5, I won't be surprised if we get a little bit of buyback on LSU, just because there is also some upside to getting an SEC team with one of the best quarterbacks. But the other thing you didn't talk about for LSU is offensive line. This is a kind of a whole rebuild, and if there is supposed to be one of the strongest points of Clemson, it really is that defensive line. The things I will caution for both of these teams, however, is an interesting trend. I'm seeing a lot of hype on both these teams. Like I said, I'm really selling the hype for both of these teams, but LSU, number 6 overall talented team this year. They were the 8th in 2023. They were the 8th in 2024, and they were the 7th in 2023. They've had hype. They didn't do anything with it. Clemson, they're the number 7th overall team. And in 2024, they were actually a little bit better. They were the 5th. And then in 2023, they were also the 5th. So when we're talking about returning, we're talking about continuity, we're talking about talent. Both of these teams have not capitalized on that talent. Now, someone's got to win this game, and I do think the direction probably is Clemson. But by and large, on these seasons, caution, both these teams. If I could sell both, I would.
Well, can I ask real quick, though? Can 2 things be true, to your point? Can Clemson really be an elite team, talented, that can do well and be overpriced and overhyped, where it doesn't make sense to back them based off where their kind of season-long outlooks are? Or are you saying the Clemson's far exceeded anything they can realistically do? I'm just curious.
There's nuance to it. I'm just saying all season we're just hearing touting returning production, #1 returning production team. It's true. But the problem for me is they had a more talented team last year and they didn't do a lot with it. They went to the playoff and got smacked by Texas. So I'm just curious if let's just say they have the same amount of talent this year. Why didn't Cade Klubnik break out last year? Like these are questions for me that if you follow the actual logic, if you follow the signal, it gets really convoluted real quick if you actually look at the data. So yeah, I think Clemson here 3.5 or more. I wouldn't be surprised they win by a touchdown. But again, this is a coin flip game. Understand anything below 4. These are coin flip games. LSU could definitely win. I agree with your narrative thing. Like they're tired of losing their first. What the fuck does that even mean? Like, yeah, if they're tired of losing, no one would ever lose.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, this is going to be, I mean, this should be a really fun matchup for not only from the narrative standpoint, but I mean, the market, like we talked about, has kind of danced around a key number there. So it should be fascinating to see what happens here. Don't forget, guys, coming up towards the end of the show, we will be talking about our model plays and our model predictions for week 1. So stick around for that. Don't go anywhere. But before we do that, let's talk about one of the other marquee matchups for week 1. Let's hit Notre Dame and Miami. Seth, in this one, like Miami was one of, if not one of the, just one of the best offenses of last year, right? So a ton of production, obviously lost with Cam Ward going to the NFL. So how they try to or can replicate some of that success will be fascinating to watch. And on the flip side, like Notre Dame's calling card last year was their defense, week in and week out, right? So just using kind of last year's data, you have a unstoppable force meets an immovable object type of matchup here. So given that there's been significant changes, particularly for the offense on Miami side, what is the data bearing out in this one, and kind of what do you expect the game script to be?
Yeah, and to the game script, I mean, these are teams that are really different. Miami was a team that threw the ball 11% more than an average team. So when we're talking about one of the most potent offenses with Cam Ward, I mean, that was who they were. They were slinging that thing all over the place. When we look at Notre Dame, they were much more of a defensive-minded team, and then they ran the ball with much more of a neutral run rate over expected. So I don't know what we're going to get out of the quarterback play. Both these teams have insane unknowns, and maybe of all the teams we're going to talk about today, or all the games, this one to me stands out even more because we have obviously new quarterback play. We have a really interesting change of quarterback for Miami, where you lose Cam Ward, you lose this talent, but then you bring in Carson Beck, to me, a proven quarterback in SEC play. And if the ACC is known for one thing, it's usually soft defenses.
Yeah. So
I'm really curious to see, do we actually see Miami's offense change at all? Do we see them try to do what they did last year, which is 11% pass rate over expected, throw the ball wherever they can? And what we're hearing out of Georgia is a mixed signal. Was the receivers the problem, or was it Beck? We're going to find out pretty quick here, and I think this is an interesting game. These teams are returning, they've lost a lot. These are highly talented teams. Miami's returning 51% of their offense, 58% of their defense. Notre Dame's returning 49% of their offense and 66% of their defense. So they're returning a number of key players on that defense, and we know that was their strength, and they made it all the way to the finals based off of that defense. So if they can have any level of what they had last year, Miami's probably going to be in trouble for their first game. But then the question ultimately is, can they get offense? Can Notre Dame back this great defense up with some good offensive play? If they can, this is going to be a really competitive team. I think people are always surprised on how talented Notre Dame is. This is a team that is highly recruited. When we talk about blue chip ratio, 50% greater on 4- and 5-star recruits, Notre Dame is in that list every single year. This is the 9th overall most talented roster for Notre Dame, and the 15th most overall talented roster for Miami. So pretty similar in talent, but definitely Notre Dame takes the cake there.
Yeah. And is this a neutral site game, or is this at Miami?
I
was just trying to look it up, because if it's at Miami, then yeah, you got a home dog kind of situation here. But again, the market has been kind of hovering around that key number. This really opened at 3 for all intents and purposes. And again, you can sit at the 2.5 now.
I believe it is at Miami.
Yeah. Okay. So fascinating. Yeah. So Steve, based on what you heard here already, what our data bear out, is there a bigger question mark than how Carson Beck is going to be able to come in here and replace the production that Cam Ward had from last year?
Oh yeah, in my mind, absolutely. Seth, I agree with everything you just said, and I think what you said and how you lay that out is going to bear true for ACC play. I don't think it bears true for Notre Dame, and I could be wrong. All right, but this is how I look at this. Right, Notre Dame, national champion, runner-up. You mentioned it. Defense is back. Jeremiah Love is back at the running back position, and naturally, the main question for Notre Dame is going to be around their redshirt freshman, CJ Carr. Can he come in and pick up where Riley Leonard left off? And quite frankly, maybe can he produce a little bit better? Right. But I'm really more curious about Carson Beck in this matchup than I am CJ Carr. And the reason is it's no secret that he regressed, him being Beck, after the departure of Brock Bowers and Ladd McConkey. And what concerns me is specifically him trying to force throws because his receivers really couldn't get that separation, right? And so in 2023, he had a 72.4% completion rate, 24 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. 2024, he goes 64.7% completion rate, 28 touchdowns, which is great, 12 interceptions. 8 of those come in a 3-game span against Bama, Mississippi State, and Texas. And so my concern here is what are we really getting with the Miami receiving core? Now, you mentioned Xavier Restrepo and all the other core receivers are all gone this year, right? And so you look at their projected starters, and not a one of them had 500 yards last year. So there's a lot of unknown. A lot of them, I don't see a lot of talent. I think they have 1 4-star prospect in terms of like how they actually come out of high school, but that's the big question mark to me. And listen, I don't think this is a big issue in ACC play. When we talk about the number 2 defensive pass EPA in the country in Notre Dame, who specializes in man-to-man coverage, I think it's gonna be a hell of a way for Beck to find out how good he is on this new squad. Week 2 and beyond, I think he's gonna have a lot easier of a sell. I think we're gonna see a lot higher of a ceiling for this team. It concerns me that Notre Dame is week 1.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. And to the point about the markets, kind of hovering around that 3 number. On the flip side, the over-under number has moved relatively a lot. It opened at 54.5 in most spots and is now basically down to 49.5, 50 in a couple spots. So yeah, market is not particularly buying what at least potentially Miami might be selling on offense.
Or the other thing too, which it's like these teams have different questions, which is, can Notre Dame get an offense going? And then Miami's, can they actually put a good defense on the field? This is where they haven't been able to capitalize. There's no reason Miami should not have been in the playoff last year. They just had dumb losses, and it was mostly because they had to win by like 100 every game. I think they had to win average margin of like 35 a game or something like this, and they still lost games that they didn't need to lose, and it's because they just didn't have the defense. So the question is, are they going to have the bodies? Are they going to have the secondary? And if they do, to your point, maybe that's what the market's forecasting, is that actually this is going to be a defensive battle, and Notre Dame will have questions on offense. If Miami's defense shows up, we already know Notre Dame's likely to have a good defense. It could just be a really anemic, offensive game. So that's what I'm really curious. We have a lot of futures on Miami. Well, we have 1 future on Miami to make the playoffs. And it really is going to be dependent on how well that defense shows up and then how Beck kind of develops over the season. So we'll see. This one's a coin flip. We make the number 2, -2 in favor of Notre Dame, +2 for Miami. So we're right. Yeah, in my opinion, if you're betting on this game, you're just gambling.
Fair enough. Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, but nonetheless, we talked about 4 games here so far, right? Notre Dame, Miami, LSU, Clemson, Bama, Florida State, Texas, Ohio State. Like 4 of the, at least in our opinion, kind of the bigger, maybe more interesting games of the weekend. But there are obviously a ton. I think how many games this weekend between there's even some games Sunday as well. I think isn't the Notre Dame game? Oh, the Notre Dame Miami
Sunday all-day game. It's all day. This is the best weekend. Maybe
I just cannot wait to blow the load metaphorically. It's going to be great. All right, let's move on though. So we got some matchups in the books here. Talking about the data that we see that might be predictive, talking about the outcomes here. Let's move on, guys. Bringing back a segment that we started kind of midway last year. I think we're going to continue it throughout the course of the season from the get here. Doing a little bit. We're going to call off the numbers here, and effectively, what it is the 3 of us each kind of go off script from what our model says, rather, in just identifying another play on the board, whether it be a money line, spread, total, first half, maybe a derivative, whatever that we like and is to some extent data driven. And just we have a friendly competition throughout the season to see who has maybe the better mental model, if you will. So, and not to rub it in, but I did just want to recap for everybody here. Last year, we did it for 10 weeks. Yours truly was the winner, 7-3. So if you want some other free picks, maybe consider tailing me. Small sample size, just kidding. I was 7-3. Seth, you were 6-4, and Steve, you were bringing up the caboose, baby. 2-8 overall. Nowhere to go. Nowhere to go.
Can I get some context to that? All right, let me get some context. It was a tightly contested race. I fell behind. I had to get a little strategic with the long shots, the +2, +300 money line dogs to catch up. So.
Okay. All right.
I do it again.
Damn it. Yes. All right. All good. But yeah, all in fun. Again, let's talk about this for a few minutes before again we get into our official model plays here to wrap it up here. So for week one play that I'm looking at here, and it is also from the spread standpoint, an official play for us in the Georgia Marshall game, which we'll talk about in a minute. But I am looking at the under in this game. Full disclosure, full caveats. We kind of like have a little rundown that we update, on the back end before the show gets started. When I put this on there, it was 55.5. I did not take it. So in good faith, I cannot give out a 55.5 anymore. It is at 54. Market moved 1.5 basically since I put it on there. So for better or for worse, that's what I'm sticking to. And I'm still rolling with under 54 for the Georgia Marshall game. Just kind of a slightly narrative based one, from my opinion, in this standpoint. An interesting couple of bits here. So, I mean, there's one data driven piece where Georgia is one of a very strong team in one metric that we track, and that's points per echo. So when they allow teams to get into plus territory towards the red zone, how many points are they allowing per opportunity there? And Georgia's really strong at 3.3. So effectively what that means, if Marshall is lucky enough to get it close to the red zone, they're not going to be scoring touchdowns. Okay, so that's point number one. And then Kirby has this interesting phenomenon where he has a tendency to, and I think this is going to be true this year with a new quarterback at the helm, to try to basically treat this as a practice, trying some things out in the early go round. He is 0-13 against the spread when he is a favorite of 38 plus. And the spread right now is 39.5. So taking a narrative kind of base angle, coupling it with Georgia's obviously stout defense, and then Marshall coming in with a new defensive minded head coach as well. I wouldn't write them off as far as what they're capable on defense. A lot of this points to the under for me. So that's what I'm rolling with. Georgia Marshall under 54. So Seth, what do you got for us?
Yeah, I'm fading a team that we didn't like a lot last year, which is Purdue. Pretty much a complete rebuild. Now I'm laying Ball State I'm taking the points. Ball State plus 18.5 is the number I gave out, but just like you, Kevin, it's moved. Give me Ball State plus 17.5 minus 102 over at BetMGM. Still like it at that number. I would touch it
already sharp.
Yeah. We moved the market already just with their minds. Yeah, I'd like it anything at 17.5 or better. So like I don't like it at 17, but 17.5 is fine. Minus 102 at BetMGM still meets my criteria. I'm fading the rebuild. This is a team that was horrible last year. Ball State within themselves is in a bit of a rebuild, but I really think that it's just too many points for a team that we know very little about. The kind of reports on the anecdotal side are that this Purdue team might be worse than they were last year. They lost a ton. Steve's highlighted over and over and over. It's a complete rebuild through the portal. That is an experiment. We do have some data on this experiment. It doesn't actually work all that well, even though people want to ignore that. And give me Ball State 17.5 plus 17.
Okay. Sounds good. Last but not least, Steve, and for you guys on YouTube, we don't have a graphic for this, but our plays are trailing across the bottom here as well. So that's where you can find them officially. So Steve, take us home, buddy. What do you got? What do you got for author numbers?
Well, first and foremost, I think we got a clean sweep in moving the market here, because I had Clemson minus 3.5, minus 110 at Caesars, and that's at -4 right now. So listen, I'm not saying your boys are sharp, but your boys are sharp here. We talked about this already in our matchup earlier, so I'm not going to say too much other than The real Death Valley is in South Carolina, and Brian Kelly ran his mouth and called Clemson Death Valley Jr. And it is well documented how petty Dabo Swinney can be. So I expect the cover, and I don't think it'll be a coincidence. Give me Clemson -3.5.
Okay. Love it. Love it. Love it. All right. Like I said, we'll be tracking this throughout the whole season, having some fun with it. So hopefully you guys can talk some smack with us.
Did we decide on a punishment, or what is the winner win?
Oh, you know what? We should let's continue to crowdsource this. We don't have to decide right now, but we
put them in the comments.
Yeah,
what should last place get punished, or what should first place win?
Yeah, we need to know. We need some ideas, because we kind of let this slip through the cracks last season. We got
a place for some stakes.
Yeah. And now we're kicking it off from the beginning of the season. I think all the more reason to hold our feet to the fire on it. So yes, let us know what you think in the comments, guys. So,
and for those who didn't watch last year, the proposed punishment was it 24 hours in a Waffle House, and one waffle gets you an hour off?
Yeah.
Yes,
which is my dream job, but you know.
Yeah. Well, you were shooting for trying to do it. So
yeah, you were gunning for it, no doubt about it. Yeah. All right, that is off the numbers, guys. All right, finally, the moment you have all been waiting for. All right, boys, it is that time. We got some official plays that let's talk about, and we just cashed one in real time, baby. We just cashed one, didn't even bring it up yet. So let's bring up the graphic here and talk about our week 1 model plays here. So Seth, kind of walk us through a couple of we talked about Ohio State a little bit as well, but talk to us a little bit about what the card is saying, and some of the games obviously that are on the slate for this weekend here.
Yeah, so for week 1, we were on Ohio plus. We actually got a 14.5. That just actually cashed while we were live here. So that's really great start for week 1. We're on Ohio State 2.5. We already bet a 2.5, like we highlighted earlier. You can now get 1.5. We still like it at that number, of course. I do think there's going to be buyback here, so feel inclined to grab that 1.5. Colorado, this is our biggest edge. And quite frankly, I think this is not going to be 4.5 for much longer. From what I can tell in the market, a lot of the sharp syndicates are also on this bet. I think that right now this number is being masked through money getting down. I think this is going to move tremendously as we get closer to Saturday, or actually Friday rather, when this game happens. So get the 4.5 now. Georgia Tech is just way too overhyped. This, if we look at the power ratings at the end of last year, this is about a 7-point mistake. So that's how much the market is off in our opinion on this. And then Marshall, Kevin, you kind of hit the narrative of why we think there's value on Marshall and what our numbers are picking up. We think that this team is not going to win this game by any chance. Marshall's going to get their ass kicked, but we think they're going to get their ass kicked by 35 points a lot of the time. Now, can they pull out maybe a 28-point loss? Potentially, but I think there's a tremendous amount of value at the 39.5. The market has started to buy this. I really would not touch it at anything less than 39. 39 is the number you need to get.
Yep. Okay. So yeah, already 1-1 here officially. We had Sam Houston State earlier on Thursday. That started off unfortunately with the loss. But now with the Ohio win, we are 1-1. So hoping obviously to come out of week 1 with a winning record. But
please. Sam Houston State, yeah, we lost that one, but 3.1% CLV. So,
and they were on the 1-inch line and got sacked, took an 11-yard sack. If they would have just ran it, if I legitimately could have ran it and got a touchdown.
Wow, with those bad knees, wow, that's
exactly. I would never been able to walk again, but I would have got the cover.
Yes. All right. So looking forward to an exciting week 1, both from a fan standpoint, and also from our model standpoint as well. And again, reminded you guys. Profitable 2 years in a row in college football. Hit at 53% last year, over 150 bets, over 300 total bets in the last 2 years, and we remain profitable as well. Not even to mention the NFL, guys. 3 years in a row profitable in the NFL, hitting 55%, which is very tough to do, albeit against openers. Who gives a shit, baby? We're profitable. So if you are interested in joining us for the season, we would love to have you. You make sure to use code BTB10 for 10% off our season package. It is not too late. All right, Seth, Steve, it's been real, man. I appreciate you guys. I appreciate all the listeners. Looking forward to a strong week 1. We'll be back next week breaking down what was and looking forward to what will be for college football week 2. Until next week, good night, good luck, We'll see you then.